Krishna. Welcome, dear devotees, to the North American Bond of Love interview series organized by North America's Vaishnavi Ministry. Today, we have the fortune and great honor for hearing from Her Grace Jagattarini Devi Dasi. This will be part 3 of our interview. If you haven't already heard part 1 and part 2, please don't miss it. It's fabulous. So, Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Jai.
Krishna.
Without further ado, maybe we can, take off from where we left off, which was, if you could share how Srila Prabhupada's first instruction manifested in your life.
Well, I was actually really grateful for this opportunity to share with you, because it gives me an opportunity to see how, from a very small beginning, a very small encounter with Srila Prabhupada, a whole lifetime of activities develops. And not only for me, but for anyone who continues to grow as life dictates, which is unavoidable anyway. But if one can continue to grow within the instructions that he's given, one will find that it's a wonderful journey. So in my case, I look back on 3 different instructions that he gave me. The first one was to put on plays, because he said that this would attract a higher class of people. The second one was to marry somebody I'd never met, and obviously to remain married as humanly possible throughout one's life. And the third one, which I haven't been able to follow as of yet, is that he asked that he told me that one day I would write a book about how the perfection of theater is Krishna. And that's been on my mind for many, many years and has not yet manifest. So, as I mentioned in the earlier broadcast, we went to live in Vrindavan in 1983. And I still kept making puppet shows, which had been my method to honor Srila Prabhupada's request. I wasn't so much interested in doing dramas because they involved too much presenting of yourself physically, and the distraction that comes along with that. I was already familiar with that, and I didn't want to do that again. So through the puppets, you see, you hide, and the story is better told. So, and also I could make puppet shows and I can be 2 people at the same time. And I need a partner, and then you've got 4 people, and you can take the puppets on and off, and you can have many people in the story. So that was how I continued to perform. And then we went to Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, my husband was working with the school, Gurukul, and he began what is known as the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education. And with that in mind, his interest was to actually train teachers, because he saw that without the teachers, there was very little value to the school. And so it didn't turn into a teacher training, it turned into a Vaishnava training, and it's still proceeding under other devotees' care to this day. And then in 1995, we had to leave Vrindavan. We'd been there for around about 11 years, And every year we would think, should we stay another year? Because we're foreigners and we have to get a visa and we have to see if Srimati Radharani will let us return. And by this time, both of our children were grown up and both of them required some real practical education. And so we were invited to come to a place we'd never been before, practically speaking, Perth in Western Australia. Now, Perth, if you've ever not heard of it, that's okay, is the second most isolated city in the world. On one side is the Indian Ocean, on the other side is a vast desert region. And there are no other connecting cities above or below Perth. And we went there because we were invited that if my husband would give 3 evening classes on the Bhagavatam every week, the temple president, who was his student, would pay for our rent. And so we went. We set up house. My husband began giving those classes. And that turned into a series of books that he has written as overview study guides for the Srila Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam. So he got very busy with that and went on with that. And I received, as I mentioned in a previous broadcast, that I received a small little Krishna about 1 inch in size. And I was quite enthralled with the idea of making things for him. It was an outlet because I don't know about in America, but at least for me, when my children were studying, they weren't interested in being with me. They weren't interested in being at home. There was a lot of free time that I hadn't expected. And so I just absorbed myself in making little things. And slowly, they also built up. So then in 2000, we'd been there for 4 or 5 years. One day there was a telephone call and I answered the phone and it was Sachinandan Swami from Germany. And I only knew him very briefly. My husband knew him well. And he said to me on the phone, he said, Jagattarini, I have a wonderful idea. You will love it. He said, but I can't tell you until I tell your husband first. So I said, okay, whatever. And then he spoke after that with my husband. And my husband told me that Sachinandan Swami had this wonderful idea that we should start holding retreats. It was a dream of his that he could service the older devotees, which we weren't yet then, who have been working very hard in their lives, raising their children, and perhaps oftentimes they're so busy that their Krishna consciousness is kind of goes to the back seat. And they're mostly busy with life. And he wanted to give them a chance to revive, revitalize, and stimulate their Krishna bhakti by inviting them to come and spend some time by the side of Giri Govardhan, the hill that Krishna lifted, and he said, I myself am Govardhan Hill. We are one and the same. So this was his idea. And the following year, we went together, he, myself, my husband, in an auto rickshaw on our way to Govardhan. And I remember him telling me that, Jagattarini, this time is not for us. This time is to serve the devotees. This is what we have to give them. So we got there, and that year there were perhaps 30 people. We stayed in a small ashram called Dwarkadam, in Jatipur, which is the less popular side for us of Govardhan, because the palace and most of the devotees go to the other side of Giriraj, Gati and different places there. And Jatipur, usually they walk through on their way to Radhakund. So there we were, and the first class of Sachinandan Swamis was given in this little teeny hall. We were all crowded in, it was so small. And then the next class, he thought, and he said, why don't we go across the road, across the Parikram path, and have our class right beside the hill? And we did. We took our little mats and we crossed the Parikram path, and we climbed over the barbed wire fence, and we went right inside and sat by the hill. And we sat under these two trees, two neem trees, tall neem trees with little parrot nests in them. And one other tree, I've never been able to figure out what the name of the tree, type of tree it is, but it has many large green leaves. And we sat there and we had our first retreat there. That was in 2001. So that means we've been going for 24 years, 25 years. I'm not very good at math. 25 years, perhaps. We've been doing the Govardhan retreat since then. And my offering was to take the devotees on parikrama, which was something I ordinarily, when I lived in Vrindavan, I loved to do. So that was what I was supposed to do. And then later, when we moved to another ashram, a bigger ashram, where we put up a big pandal tent, and now we were getting 150 people coming. And then I got an extra service, which was to find a lila and divide it into 5 pieces, portions, and then share one section of that lila every night with the devotees. And Sachinandan Swami told me, he said, don't speak about the philosophy, because in the day there's 2 classes and they're very philosophical. He said, at night it should just be to hear about Krishna. And I'd never actually at that time done a presentation that didn't contain some philosophy, some explanation of Srila Prabhupada's on what is happening in Krishna's pastimes. And so it was an unusually new experience for me to tell the story of Krishna's Leela as if we were there with him while it was taking place. It was really wonderful. I mean to say, I've done plays with children where you tell the story of Krishna, puppet shows where you tell a story of Krishna. But this was something very different. It was like entering into Krishna's pastime, whatever the pastime was. And so I've been doing that since 2013. I love it.
Like, why did you feel that?
Yes?
I was wondering, how did you feel that, or why did you feel that it felt like entering into Krishna's pastime? Was it because you were in Vrindavan next to Govardhan, or?
It was definitely, yes, it was definitely something to do with being next to Govardhan, definitely. But what I found was I wanted to only share details that were there in the writings of the other Goswamis or of Srila Prabhupada himself, not to make things up, which you do when you tell stories with little children. You add a little bit here and a little bit there, which meant that I would read 4 or 5 different books on a pastime and then try to take a piece, the details. I think it was the details that I had never heard before, and details from different people, Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Krishnadas Kaviraj, Kavi Karnapur, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. All the acharyas in our line have written something about many of the leaders of Krishna. And so to hear from them these little details I'd never heard before was very stimulating for me. So I've been doing those kind of renditions for the last 12 years. And that's been wonderful for me. And I think the devotees who come, who are really hungry to actually understand who is Krishna, how can I develop my love for him? What is the process? Most of us are in worldly places, in cities or towns or suburbs, and most of us are interacting with the materialistic lifestyle that goes on in the countries we dwell in. And most of us are managing families or various things, that all of which are, in a sense, they're indirectly Krishna conscious. And they become Krishna conscious to the degree that we have a Krishna conscious focus on the inside. And when our Krishna conscious focus wanders, then we're almost doing the same kind of activities as the rest of the world. So the idea that Satyanandan Swami, his idea was to bring that focus on Krishna back, that Krishna is real, Krishna is amazing, and Krishna's with us. When we pray, for example, it's not the supersoul, Paramatma, who is witnessing and hearing the prayers of devotees. It's Krishna himself. And so that in itself was amazing to me to understand that Krishna is real. And then when I leave Vrindavan, because now I don't reside there, I reside still in Perth, Western Australia, which is not a very, I don't know if I should say this, but it's not a very stimulating place. It's not a very dynamic, creative city. It's just a place in the world somewhere. To come back and feel like I'm not really here. My body is here, but I belong in Vrindavan. I belong with Krishna. And I'm on a journey that way, homeward. That's what Krishna consciousness means. How to become conscious of Krishna, become awake, to understand that he's a person who I love. And all the people I love belong to him, not me.
Including the family you're serving. Yeah.
Yes, instead of saying they don't belong to me, so I have no relationship with them, it's no, they belong to him and I belong to him. And I therefore have to serve as nicely as I can because he should be pleased by what I'm doing. So then my husband, he had like a dream, a wish that he could create a place where the devotees could come and they could experience Govardhan without the peculiarities that occur there as well, because they do. So he wanted to have a special place that devotees could have a peaceful, deep experience of what it's like to be beside Govardhan and to enter into this mood that Krishna is real. He's so real. He's more real than we're real. And so he had this dream of creating a place. And in 2007, he started to buy little pieces of land, not himself, but he had some devotees to help to purchase some land with this in mind. And it was a long journey. And in those days, nobody must know that we're ISKCON because land prices hadn't gone up yet like they are now. And so he purchased land there, and eventually in 2021, after a long time, he opened, or the devotees opened a Govardhan retreat center. And so we have our retreats now in our own place. And the devotees come from all over the world to spend that time of rejuvenation, or for some, it's their first experience of Krishna consciousness. But what a wonderful one. And so that's what I was requested to share something with you of the history of how this Govardhan Retreat Center began and how we began our Govardhan retreats. And to invite you all to come.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for me, it's almost like full circle because I think they announced the 2027 Govardhan retreat happening. And I was telling my husband, we have to go for it. And now you're telling the backstory of it. And last time we went to Vrindavan, we stayed at Jatipur, and the feeling of being at Jatipur and just having Govardhan
Yes,
so close by. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
yeah.
Sure.
Wow. Yeah. We have so much to be deeply grateful to Srila Prabhupada for, because he knew the value of what he was doing. We're like little arms and legs. We don't have the full picture. We're just doing whatever little part we recognize as valid for ourselves, or we've been instructed, or somebody has guided us towards. We're performing that small task. But Srila Prabhupada had the blueprint of how he could give Krishna bhakti to everyone. I still remember how in 1974, I think it was 1972, we met Srila Prabhupada in the Philippines at his request, and he was sitting behind a desk in the Hotel Intercontinental on a 2-day visit on his way to India from Hawaii. And he was sitting there and he was just looking out like as if he was daydreaming. And he said very quietly, almost to himself, he said, "It is my desire that all the souls in the universe go back to Godhead. So you please help me with that." So my husband is fond of saying to the devotees that you definitely can find some small part to play in such a big mission. Some part must be there for you. And if you play that part and please Srila Prabhupada, then Krishna will reciprocate by becoming more and more real to you. And this life is meant to come to the point where Krishna is so real, and the world, as it goes on with its own ways, is so dreamlike, it's so surreal, that we hardly really want to take much more than the time we need to in relationship to the world. We're not enamored by the glamour or the horror or the vulgarity or the intensity or the fear of the material world. It all is a little bit like a fun park where there's all these lights and noises and music and people running around. It's not real to us. It is real. We're not denying its importance or our responsibility, but it doesn't. It's not our home. It's a place that we're passing through.
That's so nicely. I was wondering, I know over like 3 parts now, you've been sharing so many of your memories with Srila Prabhupada. Do you want to share like what your favorite one could be?
Yeah. I think my favorite one, there's a couple, but my probably my very, very favorite one was after Srila Prabhupada came to Vrindavan, not Vrindavan, Hong Kong, because we, especially myself, were unaligned with him. I'd got off the track and I was doing my own things and trying to get back into some kind of a movie career. I was only in my early 20s, and I'd only been a devotee for a couple of years, and it hadn't stuck yet. And then he asked us first to come to Vrindavan. He asked us to come to the first Mayapur Vrindavan festival, which was in 1974, I think. And so we came, and it was very clumsy. One of the boys got very sick. We didn't know our way around. India was very hard in those days. People stared at you any opportunity they could get. People tried to steal things. It was just a very uncomfortable experience to be in India, especially for me, because I was still recovering from being rather seriously chastised. So I was a little tender. And we got finally to Vrindavan with the group, with the devotees who had come for the Vrindavan section of that Mayapur Vrindavan festival. This is in March 1974. And we stayed through the festival, whatever they had arranged, we took part in that. And I remember the temple was not built yet. It was still under construction. And the only thing that had been constructed, there was no guest house, no temple, that was all just cement, was Prabhupada's room. And in Prabhupada's room, we would go into his room, and he was there in the room. He gave a couple of classes. And then he would take his massage outside at the back of his room, which is now where his garden is, but it was public. There was no walls, there was nothing, just the earth and maybe a tree. And my husband said, now we have to go back to Hong Kong because Srila Prabhupada has asked us to return to the duties there, and we should go and say goodbye. And so we went around the back, and Satsvarup Maharaj was his secretary, and he said, no, you can't go there. She can't go there. You know, he's in a gamcha. You can't go there. And my husband said, we're going anyway. So we snuck around the back. We went underneath a rope. There was a rope around the edge, and came to see Srila Prabhupada sitting there in his gamcha being massaged. And he just looked at me. My husband would probably say he looked at him. But I think he looked at me.
We trust you.
Thank you. I've got mice on my side. He looked at me and he said, just like we're laughing now, he laughed and he said, how do you like Vrindavan? And I just, as laughing as we were right then, which normally with Prabhupada, there was a good deal of reverence, but it was so relaxed. And I just said to him, oh, it's wonderful, Prabhupada. And then he said back to me, like shooting, like playing together, bantering. He said, then you should come and live here. And I laughed and I said, you just sent me back to Hong Kong. And then he looked back at me with the same kind of playful defiance and said, then you should come here some months every year. And actually that's what we do. We come some months every year. Yes, we lived there for some time, and that was important to get that immersion and to get an idea of the proper way to approach Sri Vrindavan Dham in our line, in the lineage of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because we're quite particular. We're following this Gaudiya tradition. So I never mixed with the local people of Vrindavan or the local Babajis or anyone like that, because I knew Srila Prabhupada didn't want that. He wanted us to retain our own flavor and be very strong. And really, to this day, there's no one has kirtan like in the Krishna Balaram Mandir. No one. Even the other Gaudiya temples, the Goswami temples, there is no one who does kirtan like that. because Srila Prabhupada said 24 hours you should be doing kirtan for Radhashama Sundar. And it's a great struggle to live in Vrindavan now because there's so much commercial interest, and it's become a heavy tourist attraction. So the amount of people who are coming and their reasons for coming are no longer like, they don't seem to be very deep. It's just like fun for the weekend. Go. India's become wealthy, and then India was poor. Vrindavan was poor. Now the temples in Vrindavan are wealthy, you know, and wealth isn't always a sign of purity. This is something I've learned. So that's my favorite instruction.
Thank you. I was wondering, like, such a nice banter you were sharing, but now that he's, physically not here, he says he's in his books, and he is. Like, how has your relationship with Prabhupada deepened over the years since his departure, or his, visible pastimes here?
Well, that's really interesting because of the mistakes that I made personally in Hong Kong, the way I looked at life, and I made tangible errors as a young devotee, and Srila Prabhupada came and he wanted those things corrected, and then we left Hong Kong without his blessings. So that also was a bit of a shadow, because he wanted us to stay there and we went to Australia. And he still encouraged us. He didn't express anger. He expressed concern, but not anger. And because I myself personally couldn't live up to what I knew he wanted from me, that left me with, although I had a very happy beginning to my relationship with him, I'd say by the time he left, I felt quite estranged from him. By that, I mean, if there was a class and somebody said, Srila Prabhupada said, and they gave a quote, inside in my heart, I'd feel uncomfortable. I'd feel like, oh, Srila Prabhupada, he wouldn't like what I'm doing now. I would feel uncomfortable. And so that was kind of, for me, that was a bit sad that I had I felt like I'd started well and failed. That's how it was experienced by me. And then I essentially, living at Gita Nagari, we had the association of Satsarup Maharaj, who was writing the Prabhupada Lilamrita. And so he was regularly reading to the devotees different things that had been found out about Srila Prabhupada that now everyone knows. Everyone knows Srila Prabhupada's childhood. Everyone knows about him. But nobody knew then. And so each new fact was quite fascinating to hear, oh, Prabhupada, he did this, he did that. Somebody knew him. He was a real person. That was very astonishing at that time. But still this kind of nagging kind of, there was still this kind of feeling that I had let him down. And there was a kind of sadness. So my husband was hoping that by us going to live in Vrindavan, that would cure that. And when we went to live in Vrindavan, there's Srila Prabhupada in the Samadhi, there's Srila Prabhupada on the altar, there's Srila Prabhupada in his room, there's Srila Prabhupada here, there, everywhere Srila Prabhupada is present. And one night, I remember I had a dream, and I told my husband about it in the morning. I had a dream that I walked into the temple room and I was standing in front of Srila Prabhupada's deity, and he moved his counter beads. It was really simple. That's all he did. He was sitting there and he moved his counter beads. And when I woke up, I said to my husband, I had this dream and Prabhupada moved his counter beads. And my husband looked at me and he said, you need a deity of Srila Prabhupada. I still to this day don't know how how he came to
Yeah.
that logic. But when we returned in 1983 to America, before returning to Vrindavan, he managed to get me the last deity that was made by, I think his name was Lochandas, a small deity, just about 10 inches high, of Srila Prabhupada. And we brought him back to Vrindavan. And when when my husband started the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education, Srila Prabhupada would sit there in the classroom. And eventually he ended up with me, fully with me. And, you know, I'm an artist, I'm not a pujari. And And when he ended up with me, I told my husband, Prabhu, I can't worship him. I can't do anything daily. I'm not organized enough. What to do? What will I do with him? And I just decided, well, he kind of came to me. And so I'll just keep him with me, travel with me, sit with me in my room, talk to him. He doesn't answer me, but just talk to him like he's like my father. I don't have to be perfect. And so I've had him with me for a very long time now. And every morning I chant with him. Every morning I myself am not a very organized person, so it's not like I'm punctual or disciplined or structured, but I just go back to him because he knows that. And I think that's really important to understand that he knows you, who you are, and he's already got your number, as they say. And so my relationship with Srila Prabhupada has developed and strengthened over the years. Occasionally, when I become a little lax, I feel frightened even that I'm not doing well enough, I'm not doing nicely, I'm not paying enough attention. Uh, and so I correct. I try to correct what I see. And um, and it's very nice. And I'll tell you something that's really nice is that now, the last 3 years here at where we live here in Gopinath Dham, we call our place, and our project is called Vrinda Valley. And when I go to Vrindavan for 3 months, now I don't take Srila Prabhupada with me because I'm old and it would be hard, he might be damaged. So my son worked out a plan and he calls it Srila Prabhupada's Perth International Tour. And whilst I'm away for 3 months, Srila Prabhupada goes to stay with different devotees. He goes to stay, first of all, with a group of devotees who live near to us, and he stays up to a week, and then he comes back to our place. And then that night, the devotees come and they have kirtan, and then he goes to stay at another devotee's place. And he goes around. All the devotees have to decide that they want him to come. There's simple rules they have to follow. There's levels. You can just have him there, or you can chant to him, you can talk to him, you can feed him, you can do so many things. You can offer Guru Puja, everything, but he stays with them for the short time and then he moves again. And it's become really kind of like a tradition now for us that Srila Prabhupada travels for 3 months. But he has to be in my room by the time I get back.
I loved it when you said that. When you went to Vrindavan, you saw him everywhere. In my mind, I was saying, Ito Prabhupada, Parto Prabhupada, Yato Yatayami, Tato
Yes,
Prabhupada. And it literally is happening in Perth when you're away. So
yes,
he's
yes,
going
it's true.
everywhere.
Yeah, he goes here and there. And the devotees really relate to him as a person because of that deity. So, oh, and I had another dream. about Srila Prabhupada. When I was in Vrindavan, I was living at the Goshala. At that time, there was a little room there, and I was staying there. This is in 1983. And when I arrived, I got malaria. I knew I was going to get sick, and I got sick. And then they treated the malaria, and it turned into jaundice. So I was confined to my room for something like 6 weeks, couldn't go to the temple, no energy, eating only kitri, sort of. It should have been a very morose time, but it actually became a very sweet time because I felt very comfortable in the simplicity of being in Vrindavan. And one night I had a dream, and in that dream, Srila Prabhupada was in a room, and I went into the room, and the devotees were all having there was a class going on, and he was in the room. I went into the room, but then I excused myself, and I left the room, and there was a corridor, and on the other side of the corridor there was another room that had lots and lots of prasadam in it. And in that room, there were cakes and pizzas and big cakes and little cakes and cream cakes and all kinds of amazing things that you don't get in India. And I found myself in this room stashing things, but there was nowhere to hide them. So I was putting them in the corner, big cream cakes and pizza, and I was hiding it behind things. And so I was very absorbed in this room, hiding food. And then I went into the other room. I kept feeling so guilty. Prabhupada is in the other room. This is a dream. You should be in there. You'll never see him again. Go into the other room. And finally, I'd hidden so many cakes. I felt secure. And so I opened the door and I went into the other room, and everyone was gone. He was gone. The devotees were gone. Everyone was gone. And I felt so bad. And then I had another dream, similar, or I think it was a continuation of that dream, where I said to Srila Prabhupada, there are many faults that we know of. We have faults that we know of. What do we do about them? And in the dream, he said, ask the devotees. They will help you. And then I said to him, but Prabhupada, what about the faults that we have that we don't know about? What can we do about them? And he sat there in the dream, nodding his head, and he said, ask the devotees about those as well. So later that day, I was still dreaming. I was still remembering these two dreams. And I finally got the courage to talk to one of the devotees. And I told them, because I felt so embarrassed about the cakes and the pizza. It was so embarrassing. So I told one devotee, I said, I had this dream, and it was like this, told them the whole dream. And they looked at me and they said, oh, that's very common. When you have jaundice, because you can't eat so many things, the mind conjures up all these things to eat. It's very common. And then I remembered the dream where Prabhupada said, ask the devotees. And even if it's something you don't know, ask the devotees. So that was something that grew it restored in me that it removed that shame that I felt when I came to Vrindavan. I felt like that was healed there. And Srila Prabhupada, I again felt like I was comfortably safe on the path, trying to get there. And I had one more dream at that time. I was in America, actually, waiting to come back to Vrindavan. This was 1984. And in that dream, it was very short. My husband was about to leave to return to Vrindavan, but I couldn't because I had some visa problem. And in the dream, Srila Prabhupada was walking out of the Goshala where I was living, And he sat down to put on his shoes. And I came running over to him and paid my obeisances. And then I stood up, and Srila Prabhupada looked at my husband and said, "Who is that girl?" And I didn't really mind that he didn't remember me. It didn't seem to matter. So I was just standing there, and my husband said, "Oh, this is my wife," like something. And Srila Prabhupada looked at me very gravely, and then he reached down to the ground and he picked up a small piece of rope, about this long, and the rope was sort of all ragged at the end, like a grass rope that had sort of untied itself. And it was quite, and he went like this with the rope and brought it towards my face. And I thought he wanted me to take it. So I reached for it and he drew it back. And he just held it. So I looked at it. And then he put it down. And then he picked up another piece of rope. And it was sort of like nylon rope that had kind of gone frizzy at the end. It was all frizzed out. And a small piece of rope. And he held this. And then he put that down. And then he picked up another piece of rope, and that rope was kind of bound at the end with cotton, and it was straight. And he held that one. And then he put it down. And then very carefully he said, "What is the difference?" And in the dream, I tried to think, what do I say? And so I said, the last one was pointy and straight. And he looked at me in the dream and said, "Yes." So when I woke up, I felt like as if he had instructed me, you have to remain straight. You have to go straight, not all over the place and not frantic. Just keep going straight. So I haven't had a dream from Srila Prabhupada in years and years, 20 years, 25 years. But those dreams were really, really important for me to do that healing work of restoring my confidence that with or without Srila Prabhupada's physical presence, my Krishna consciousness had to go on.
So beautiful, so beautiful. You're sharing such a beautiful pastime, and it's giving us hope to dream, right? Like you're saying, dream on. So do you believe it's important for the next generation of devotees to develop a personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada? If yes, like why and how?
Yes, I do. I think that there's two levels to that. I think that it's an error to try to develop a relationship with a person who is not physically present without going through those who are physically present. Some people think that they can have a direct relationship with Srila Prabhupada and he's my guru, Diksha guru and everything. To me, that's not traditionally how it's achieved, because the whole purpose of guru is to learn how to submit, and sometimes the submission comes in a way that we feel is almost impossible, or it's not submission. It's going to be a failure if I submit. I also think that depending on how sincere one is, one will be protected even if there are difficulties within that submission. And I also think that one has to have, and I didn't have in the beginning, sufficient spiritual understanding of my own to know how to properly submit. So it's a mysterious combination. You have to submit to the teacher who will teach you from the previous teachers. They're coming down to you. They want to reach you. They're not distant, but they want structure, and they want something that they want us to keep the boat afloat. They want us to follow their example, which, of course, on many levels we cannot, but they want us to keep the boat afloat and do what we can. And they want us to share that according to who we are with as many people as we can. So Srila Prabhupada's books are a vital part of that. But it's not just distributing his books. It's to actually assimilate what his books are about. If you've distributed 10,000 books but you haven't read them, recently one old Australian disciple of Srila Prabhupada said to me, we used to distribute books by the thousands, and then we used to pick them up out of the waste bins on the street. It wasn't that we distributed 10,000 books and 10,000 people were reading them. Many people threw them away. So the quality is, to me personally, more important than quantity, although quantity is also very important. But if you have quantity without quality, you run the risk of creating a religion. And then people are just religious. They're just brought up, I'm a Hare Krishna. And you ask what's a Hare Krishna, and they don't have much interest in finding out even, because it's just how they were born. And that's not what Srila Prabhupada had in mind. He wanted us to be able to say, I'm a servant of Krishna. So are you. So is everyone. And not an Indian one or an Australian one or a Russian one, although we will have our ethnicity, and that allows us sometimes to be able to influence people of the same ethnicity better. But that's not where it ends. That's just, that's our vehicle, so to speak. So I would definitely, if you don't have an understanding of Srila Prabhupada, then you'll be weak, or you'll be too strong in the wrong way, which either one is not going to be as helpful as you should or could be.
Such a beautiful point, like the next generation, our generation, the generation after us, and so forth. We don't want to be just devotees' kids, but like ourselves feel like we are the servant of Krishna, right? And so beautiful.
And you see, everyone has a relationship with Srila Prabhupada, but it's not everybody is his disciple. You know, as some devotees want to portray that you too can be his disciple. But it's quite natural in a family, right? It's natural. You know, this is my father, that's her grandfather, that's his great-grandfather. They all have a relationship with the same person, but it's unique to each individual. And if you cultivate the relationship you have with your grandfather, great-grandfather, father, brother, whatever relationship you've been given, then you'll get enormous benefit from that alone. So to feel like Srila Prabhupada is your grandfather is wonderful. Grandfathers are very affectionate.
Yes, and they pamper grandchildren more.
Yes, they overlook a lot of things.
So beautiful.
So take it. You know, it's a gift. It's a priceless gift that you've been born with, of each one of us. And I also see, and I've had my experience, that growing up can be difficult. People come with complexities in their lives. They struggle through all sorts of different hoops and barriers to move forward. A great deal of tolerance is required, particularly nowadays, because people are becoming more and more raised with technology and complexity and so many things, different than the problems and the struggles when people were simple and poor, but no less, possibly even more complex. And so the more that you have a relationship with Srila Prabhupada as an anchor and a guide and a pathway through it all, the more I feel somebody is secure. They're going to do okay. They just have to grow in that relationship.
There are a zillion qualities. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, no, you.
I was just going to say there are a zillion qualities that Srila Prabhupada has. If you could pick one, what would your favorite one be?
Oh gosh.
The tough one.
One time I was asked something like that. Now this wouldn't be the same answer I'd give today, but it was an answer I gave at one time. And I was asked, what is it about Srila Prabhupada that you like the most, or something like that? And I thought and thought and thought and thought. And then one day it came to me, it's his voice. Because now I associate with him through his voice. So I often leave a player playing Srila Prabhupada's lectures all night. Sometimes it has had very profound effect on my, I guess, subconscious, just to wake in the night and hear him speaking, and to hear the nuances of how he's answering someone or what he's saying, and how Srila Prabhupada can say something very stern, very grave, but you listen to his voice and there is no anger, there is none of the emotions that I would synonymate with that particular statement. They're not there. There's something different happening. And so I've learned to trust his voice, as opposed even to reading, because in reading I can take his words and think he's angry with me. I think my fear is always he's angry at me. He's got lots of good reasons, because I don't live up. I can't live up to all the things that I've heard. I can't. Therefore, I feel oftentimes he must be angry with me. But then I hear his voice and I think, oh, he's not angry with me. That's amazing. That's amazing. He's wonderful.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I personally was feeling a little, bereft of his association. I used to listen while cooking. Now I don't have the facility anymore, and I love listening while sleeping. And I listen to other devotees, but now I can listen to Prabhupada, just like you said. And thank you, such a beautiful takeaway.
It's the most powerful anchorage. Prabhupada is the most powerful anchorage. He goes with everything. Anyone's guru, anyone's path, anything, anchor to him. He's like rock solid. That's it.
I'm like fighting against time, but if we could maybe end with one last question, it'll be, what is something that you're grateful to Srila Prabhupada for?
Well, I'm most grateful to Srila Prabhupada for giving me access to Vrindavan. And I'm most grateful also to Srila Prabhupada because, in the spiritual world, you can be most grateful to many things, not one. I'm most grateful to him that he gave me a good husband, as he said he would, even though it was a hard road to become a good wife. I don't think I've made it yet. Because I'm an artist, so I'm irregulated and spontaneous, and my husband is a disciplined, orderly person. I'm most grateful to him that he's given me ongoing service that I can do until leaving here. And I'm most grateful to him that he's given me access to the Goswami literature so I can learn about what is Vrindavan, what is eternal, what is not real, what is real, and finish up my journey here within the fantasy-like material world. I'm most grateful for that.
Thank you profusely for joining us 3 times with 3 parts. No one has ever done this. You set a record, and what a record. No. If we push it, we can even make it to the 4th one. But So, my dear viewers, listeners, if you haven't watched part one and part two, you're berefting yourself from something so sweet, so sublime, even tastier than those cream cakes. So, don't miss out, bliss out. Go check out Prabhu's part one and part two of this series. And thank you again so much for being so wonderful and sharing this so real time with us. Right? You could actually see all this, and you gave us that vision. And we would like to personally pray, and we're eagerly waiting for that book. So you've completed those two parts so nicely, those two instructions so amazingly. So the book, Perfection Theatre of Krishna, we're eagerly waiting for that. You have people already, you know how pre-orders come up? You have like at least 1,000 pre-orders. You have my word, you have it. So you owe us
Thank
this.
you.
Please do,
Thank you.
please.
Thank you. Let's see if we can carry it out. We'll give it a try. Thank you.
So much again.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.